Welcome to Ask the Educator, a podcast brought to you by Healthmark Industries. Are you a sterile processing technician or manager? Maybe you work in infection prevention or biomedical engineering. Whether you're a frontline tech, endoscopy tech, OR nurse, or surgical services administrator, you undoubtedly have influence in medical device processing at your facility. In each episode, we speak with experts from the Healthmark Clinical Affairs team, industry leaders, or special guests from the trenches to answer your questions and bring you relevant industry information, equipping you for excellence in medical device processing. My name is Kevin Anderson, and I will be your host. Now let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ask the Educator podcast. This is Kevin Anderson, clinical education specialist with Healthmark Industries, and joining me is another fellow educator here at Healthmark, and Malinda Elammari. We're going to tackle a very big topic, I think. We've been just kind of discussing this, and it just seems like there's so much content around this, but nonetheless, we're going to get into it. Malinda, welcome to the show. Let's talk about peel pouches, huh?
Yeah, let's do it. This is going to be great. I feel like this is like Pandora box.
It really is. And this is something that came to your mind because of things that you've been seeing lately in the industry, going out into different departments and things like that. And I just got to tell you, I mean, you know, our whole team has been doing this, and this is something that I've been seeing a ton of as well. So I thought it was a great topic to address. One of the things, the sort of backdrop, I guess, if you will, regarding peel pouches is we want to try and address some of the common misunderstandings or problems that we're seeing in the field. So that's kind of the backdrop of it. And that is like checking your seals and things like that. So what have you been seeing out there regarding the actual seal of a peel pouch that have been kind of alarming?
So I think, like you said, you know, the great concept is Healthmark offers these free clinical practice reviews for their customers. And so great part is we get to see what is happening and help educate the masses, which we're trying to do here, right? One of the biggest things that I keep seeing is the sealing of these pouches, and whether that's heat sealed or self-seal, the sealing is not happening according to IFUs and according to standards, how they're supposed to be sealed. For example, we see bubbles in the seals. We see the heat sealed pouches. They have little bubbles in them, little creases in them. It's not a complete flat solid seal. And then you also have the self-seal pouches where there's like loops at the end. For instance, if you turn it to the side, you can see a big loop, and that means that that pouch was not even sealed correctly. All those little microorganisms are just right inside the pouches. Those things are really alarming, and I think it's just more so people just don't know. They don't realize, you know, when I point it out, and I know, Kevin, you've probably had the same situations happen, and we point it out to the customer, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. It's just more educating them and getting them to understand the importance behind it.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, yeah, I've definitely seen the same problem. One of the things that comes to mind when I think of sealing, and you mentioned there's two different kinds, right, is the heat seal and the self seal. And if we're just looking at the heat seal, you literally just have to look at the seal and see what a brand new seal looks like. You'll see it on the manufacturer's seal side. That's what the seal should look like. And your seal should look the same. It should be a complete seal all the way through. Otherwise, if there's some sort of compromise there, it's probably just going to get worse over time and then leave, like you said, a possible avenue for contaminants to enter. I think one of the things that people don't realize is there's that bar type heat sealer that requires us to rotate the filament or the Teflon roll, whatever you want to call it. You have to rotate it on some sort of frequency so that it doesn't get overused. And also with those bar types, we tend to put our packages in the same spot, like in the middle or just off to the right. If most of your people are right-handed or whatever, we're reusing that same part of that Teflon roll or filament roll, whatever you want to call it. So it's getting reuse over and over and over again and getting worn down. Whereas maybe a continuous feed heat sealer might be different. Yes, you're not going to have the same wear and tear problem that you do with the bar sealer, but you still have to get those things calibrated. You still have to have preventive maintenance on them. And so there's potential there that, you could have a seal issue with those as well. So what is it that we can help people with when it comes to the self-seal pouch? Like, what do you think is the number one problem with the self-seal that leads to the problems that we're talking about, these little bubbles and avenues through there?
Before we get to self-seal, I just wanted to touch back with what you were saying with the heat sealer. That rotation is vital. And then also when people or staff constantly putting in that middle, you get the worn down, but you can also get buildup right in that center. And then you start seeing these tiny little micro bubbles in your seal because the seal is not actually making contact and fully happening in that spot. The other part with the heat sealers that we see is these, I guess, like little tunnel bubbles going from the edge of the seal, right? Like, so it's not a complete solid squared off seal. There's like these little tunnel bubbles going up. So it's not a complete 100% seal. And some people might say, well, it's sealed further down, but yet once again, you are allowing contaminants or microorganisms to go get into that package just through those little tunnels, if you will. So those are really things that we see out there that I believe need to be made aware of, that they exist. Make sure you're testing your heat sealer, right? Like, that's another thing, is you should be doing a test, taking a test pack or a piece of peel pouch and sealing it, making sure you get that seal. There's products on the market that help you do that and document that on a daily basis. Also, there's liquid tests that you can really test whether your seal is actually happening. Those are always fun. You get to play with the blue dye and stuff. Back to your question about self-seal, the biggest problem that I think happens with self-seal pouches is the fact of technique. It's the way that staff are sealing. So often I see people they will just peel the backing off of the sticky area, and they'll start at one side and just flatten it out like with their hand. And then you sort of get this warped concept where you might have a piece hanging off. It's not flat. You start getting those loop concepts. The true technique is you fold it over, you make a crease, you fold on that crease that's manufactured. Please do not make your own. That's right. Another thing we see is if the peel pack is too long, they just completely fold it way up and seal it, which is just, mind-boggling. When you're talking about sterility concept, we know that you're not creating any seal on that pouch, and it's just basically open to air. So fold on the crease that the manufacturer provides, and then you peel your backing off. Start in the middle, use your thumbs, 2 thumbs in the middle, and then work your way to the outer edges. And this will give you a nice flat, solid seal on your pouch. And you won't have that warping or, I don't know about you, Kevin. I don't know, before, if I messed it up, I would just peel it off and then put it back down, I can get it up. Because, you get those little, those little mountains in your seal, and you're like, great. No, I got to do this again.
Yeah, do over. That's time to do over.
I don't do that anymore because now I know better.
Right. Well, we were all perfect technicians once upon a time. No, that's not the case. Yeah, we all made the mistakes too. And that's why we're sharing the information. But that was a great point in terms of self-sealing technique is starting in that middle and pressing outwards. And so far, the ones I've done, it hasn't done me wrong. So I definitely recommend that technique. And maybe we'll even do a video that showcases that technique. It's a real simple
that'd be great
visual for people. Yeah. I do want to point out, it's funny, going back to the heat sealer, I wanted to make a point that I forgot about. But when you go back and forth between sealing Tyvek pouches versus paper and plastic pouches, you have to modify the temperature. So follow your peel pouch IFU on what temperature you're supposed to use. And that will definitely have an impact on the quality of seal that you get. The other thing I wanted to do is plug the YouTube video that we did on the heat sealer itself. So if you're having trouble following at all, like what we're trying to explain, or maybe that ink test that Malinda mentioned, we have a video that shows the visual of all of this. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that temperature because that's one I forgot.
It's really, yeah, it's easy to do.
And we see it all the time, or we see like, okay, this heat sealer, they have two different ones. This one's labeled steam, this one's labeled, VPRO, Sterad, whatever low temperature they're using. They maybe the steam breaks down and they start using the other one for it. And nobody's paying attention to temperature and they're just leaving, or they have problems with their seal because their Teflon roll's not working and they jack the temperature all the way up. And then it really messes up their seals. And so temperature is extremely important. Please make sure you're following that.
Yeah, it is important. And it's also important to do those quality checks and just observe what your seal looks like, because the last thing you want to do is just wait until the OR complains that your seals are failing or something like that, because that does actually happen. And I've seen people try to double seal the end to fix a problem, but really it's just masking the issue. There's an underlying issue there that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that double seal, one of the reasons people tell me they double seal is because their instruments might fall through the first seal. And so the way that is happening is what they're doing, like what I see them do is they will make that seal and then they will put the instrument in right away. They don't give it time to actually set. Not that you need to give it like minutes or something, but at least a few seconds for it to cool and set and actually seal. And it's not still hot and they're throwing an instrument in it. Just giving that a second to actually set will really make a world of difference with how your seal holds up.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, seals can be broken through pretty easily. And that's definitely one of them. I think, not having the right temperature, not having the correct contact time with the heat, as you said, but there's also selecting the right, item, right? Like sometimes we peel pouch heavier, more bulky items or something like that when we probably should be wrapping them. Or maybe there's a tip protection type device that we can use to help maintain that seal barrier. So there's a lot of reasons that, we see problems with seals, and it's really good for people to monitor their heat sealing process, their actual equipment, the process, how people are doing it. What do they know to observe for? How are they being trained? How are they being competency on this? It's funny that, we were discussing about all these different items on that we could go over with peel pouches. And Malinda, we're already kind of up against the time that we were shooting for. So what I'm going to suggest is that maybe you give us one last point to go off of, but then this is going to turn into a series. I can tell you that, because there's a lot more to talk about double peel pouching and then sterilization and storage as well. So we definitely have a lot to go through. If there's anything left out there that we didn't mention in terms of the heat seals and, setting this whole stage up, what your final thoughts are before we wrap up.
I think testing is extremely important. Make sure that you're paying attention to what your seals look like. Even if you have a correct seal that you do a test on for the day and you post that for the day for the staff to see. And so they have a visual comparison. The other thing, the point that you made about the peel pack themselves, a lot of times there's a weight limit on your peel packs, right? So putting a 2-pound mallet in a peel pack might go against your manufacturer's instructions for use for that pouch. So just making sure that you know what your pouch says is another, but that's a horse for a different day, right?
Yeah, the IFU part of the discussion is always applicable. So whether it's, heat sealing, self-sealing, choosing the right pouch for the right item, some, as you say, might have weight limits, some of them don't. There's some discrepancy there that you have to kind of figure out in your particular facility and the devices you're peel pouching. But yeah, the IFU is always applicable. And we definitely recommend getting into the IFUs of your peel pouches and your heat sealers to help get you started on your peel pouching. But thanks so much, Malinda, for bringing up this idea. Now it's going to be a series because there's just so much.
Was that your little teaser for the next series?
Yeah,
next part of our series?
That's right. That's right.
There's more to come. Beware.
There's more to come. That's right. Yeah. So thanks so much, Malinda, as usual.
Thanks, Kevin.
That wraps up this episode with Malinda Elammari. We got the discussion started on peel pouches. In this episode, we focused a lot on the sealing process of the peel pouches, both heat seal and self-seal. We recommend that you perform seal tests and document your findings. If there's a problem, make sure that you take action and document those action steps. Verify that PMs are being done, that staff are competent both with the heat seal pouching and self-seal pouching. Always reference the IFUs of the sealers and the pouches when developing your standard operating procedures when it comes to using, testing, and maintaining your heat sealer and your peel pouch inventory. I want to thank you for listening and be on the lookout for the next episode in our series on peel pouches. All opinions expressed on this show are those of the presenters. Before using any medical device, it is important to review the device manufacturer's instructions for use.